Hey, it's Lauren. Just a heads up that this episode originally aired on an episode of the Business in the Front, Party in the Back podcast, which I co-host with Michelle Price. Enjoy!
So today we have Michele Scott here with us. She is the creator of our wellness community, which is successfully uniting seekers, students, and holistic practitioners everywhere. Our wellness community is on Facebook if you are looking for it. Michelle's passionate about community, connecting people, wellness tools and therapies, and is giving holistic practitioners a voice via KC Radio, which is 97.7 FM, via Wellness Conversations talk show, also a podcast on Spotify, and a webcast show on Spiritual Events Directory, which is how we know each other. Michele, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's absolutely thrilling to be here. You know, I love to talk about all things wellness and especially numerology.
Yes, hooray, because that's that's the first thing, I think, out of all the things that you do. That was one of the first things you learned. Now, Michele, I just wanted to ask if you're able to just explain to our listener at home what numerology is in a nutshell for people who haven't heard of it.
I'd love to. So numerology is a personality indicator. So basically from your full name at birth and birth date details, we can see right into the core of who you are, where you are, why you are there, what's up ahead. It's so in depth. It gives you, out of your name, we get the personality, and out of your birth date, we get the cycles of your life. So, and as we know, it's always changing. So therefore your profile will change accordingly. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell, really. If you're on the path of, if you're wanting to, find out more about who am I, why am I here, what is my purpose, which are the three questions that drove me on that quest to learn more. Then numerology is just, for me, it was the last piece of the puzzle. You know, it just, I had learned lots of different and other modalities along the way, and each of it gave me a little bit more insight into who I was and why I was here. But when I found numerology, I mean, it was just boom, shakalaka boom. Honestly, I just fell in love with it. And I have to tell you, my longest relationship to date has been with numerology.
That's gold. That's the quote of the day. Quote of the day is that that's my longest relationship to date. Love it.
It's hilarious. All right. So Michele, I know that, numerology is a really big subject and it's quite difficult to kind of summarize it as quickly as you did. You did a great job though. I know that a little bit later in our questions, we do want to talk to you about, the role that free will plays and, sort of the role of numbers in relation to business and also homes that you live in and things of that nature. Yeah. Before we get to all that though, can you tell me and Michele a little bit more about, sort of what numerology is based on exactly? I know you talked about our names and our birthdays, but I think it goes a little bit, deeper than that as well, right?
Oh, absolutely, honestly, and since I've fully committed to it, I've been learning and practicing learning and experiencing numerology since 2003. So, absolutely, and once I committed fully to it in 2010, I just couldn't believe how deep the numbers went. So, numerology is. I often say though, I don't know why it works, but it does. I don't know why it can see into the heart of who we are, but it does. So Pythagoras, the mathematician, is credited as being the founder of Western numerology. So we call it the Pythagorean method. And as we know, he was a mathematician, but he was also many other things. And Pythagoras was a spiritual teacher. He ended up, I don't want to go, too deep into Pythagoras, but he did end up opening a spiritual school, if you like. At the time, it was quite, to get in there was quite something. You couldn't get in there easily. It was very secretive. And I think it ended up being sort of raided and, maybe a little bit like the witch hunt of, in Salem, it kind of went down that sort of path. But he was credited, so he's credited as being the founder, but I don't think that he created it as such. I think it was already there, and he came along and poured so much more into it. And he believed that everyone and everything in the universe could be explained in terms of numbers. And what I've discovered since practicing and learning is that, yes, I agree. There are numbers in life, and life in all of the numbers. So it goes so deep as to show you there's 9 core numbers in numerology, and those 9 core numbers relate to 9 key aspects of self and 9 key areas of life, is what I've found and have developed. And if we could imbue all the characteristics of each of the numbers positively, we would absolutely grow into, as Jung said, on the way to wholeness, we must meet, accept, and integrate all parts of ourselves. And I'm telling you, numerology gives you insight into all of it, good, bad, otherwise.
Love that.
So it's deep.
Yeah, Michelle, you're doing a bit of mind reading here, because we actually had a question about Pythagoras, which is interesting. And you pretty much read it out for word. So we've made a couple of adjustments over here. But I get hives when I think of Pythagoras, because I just remember Pythagoras' theorem when I was learning it in maths.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh gosh. And now I love numbers. Like I'm really interested in numbers. So it's interesting how you change. But you mentioned Pythagoras. What other types of numerology are there? So there are a few different types.
There are a few different types. Look, the only other one that I know is actually, I think it's Chaldean, something along that line. But I have to tell you, look, I'm very much, I'm committed and dedicated. So once I found the Pythagorean method, I did look into that many years ago. I couldn't even tell you now. I did actually look into that, and I remember thinking it was complicated, actually. I think that's what stopped me from going any further down that path. And then I just became a Pythagorean, how do you say, when you follow bands around?
Fangirl.
Yes.
Groupie.
A groupie. I'm a Pythagorean groupie. But yeah, there is there is that other method as well.
I had a question actually about that, because I talked to somebody, and their background was all in Chaldean. So I guess they probably have the same passion for that as you did. And they were telling me, and you have to understand, I don't know a lot about this stuff, so set me straight, Michele, but they were kind of saying that Chaldean is kind of like almost the parent behind
Pythagoras?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And so I was kind of wondering, because I was confused by that, because I was trying to, come up with my business name and things like that.
Yes.
And when you look at the different numbers, I'm getting a different result based on the numerology that I'm looking at. And I guess I just felt really confused, because I was unsure about which one I was supposed to follow. And I guess for me, my friend is the internet. So I wasn't necessarily, connecting with numerology as much as I just wanted it to say what I wanted to hear, right? So while I still get to know it a little bit more, that's kind of where I was at. So I guess my question is sort of like, how do you know what numerology is right for you? And then also, how do you kind of trust the answers or the results that you're getting?
So I'll probably start with the last thing you said there and work backwards. How do you trust anything in life? Well, you have to take a whole lot of different things. You have to use head, heart, and spirit, don't you? You really have to. At the end of the day, it's really going to be what you are drawn to, what you resonate with, and what you feel. Really, this is what I sort of say to clients and students all the time, that when you bring in the number 7 in numerology is learning how to use her head, her heart, and her intuition. If we just get stuck in the head, as we know, that can only solve so many problems. And similarly, if it's only heart and it's only intuition, we don't have that well-rounded, application in life. So I would really start there and say, whatever you are drawn to. As I said, I don't really know about the Chaldean method, but if it's the parent, if they're saying that it's the parent of, and bearing in mind these days with the spiritual, the wellness, the holistic, there are so many modalities out there. And what all of us are doing now in this time of independence and innovation is that we are actually all creating our own programs as well. So, there won't be just confusion between the 2 different types of numerology, but there's confusion, amongst all of these different ways there are to really discover who you are, discover soul purpose, discover, where's my meaningful life. So really all of these tools, to me, all of these tools are ways to get there. And we all kind of, we're all kind of drawn in the direction of what speaks to us, is where I would start with that. So, but if Chaldean is the father of the Pythagorean method, it seems odd to me that there would be discrepancies. And I'll tell you why I studied tarot. I've studied Chinese astrology, hand analysis, which I love, face readings, writing analysis, all of which I love. But I tell you why I especially love numerology is because with tarot is a very subjective tool. So it does depend on the deck you are studying. It depends on the teacher teaching you. And then, of course, it's you draw upon your own level of intuition, which, varies from reader to reader. And look, I've got a lot of practical numbers in my personality numerology profile. So that was a little bit, I loved it. And I used that tool in my coaching and mentoring, but it was a little bit wishy-washy, whereas for numerology at the time that I discovered numerology and for where I was at in my life, what I loved about it was every number has a personality, every number is a cycle, every number has a challenge, every number has qualities and traits that we assign to that number, positive and negative. And it doesn't matter what numerologist you go to using the Pythagorean method, everyone agrees on that number and its attributes. Whereas I found, as I said, with other modalities, it really depended on who they studied with, and then they call upon their own experience, their own, in life. So yeah, this is what I loved about numerology. It was a very objective tool, and so I'm surprised to hear that Chaldean conflicts with that. But if it does, look, honestly, it's really up to you to go in the direction of what you resonate with.
Well, and I'm not an expert in Chaldean at all, right? I'm just going off what somebody I don't even know well told me, but I guess she was kind of saying that like Chaldean plays a role behind everything. And I'm pretty sure that they don't always, how in when we're dealing with numbers, like if we have, let's say, number 19, then we would add the 2 together to be 10, which would be a 1. I don't believe that they do that. I don't believe that they always like add the numbers together. So if our listener at home is an expert in Chaldean and you're angry at me talking and saying that I'm getting it all wrong, send us a DM and we'll bring you on the show, because it would be very interesting for us to go into that. But I just thought it was worth kind of, us exploring the concept a little bit, that there's sort of something for everybody. Because I love the idea of breaking down the numbers and adding them together to get a single digit. And, that for me really resonated with the way that I like to think as well. And when I was kind of, sort of brought into this other way of thinking, I just thought it didn't really sit right with me, which I guess is what you're kind of talking about.
Yeah. And also actually, Lauren, having you specifically having mentioned 19 there is beautiful, because it depends on the different, your numerology profile breaks down into so many different parts, and depending on what part we are looking at does change a little bit of how we calculate the numbers. But you just mentioned 19, and 19-1 in Pythagorean numerology is a karmic number. So in actual fact, we don't break that. We do break it down to the 1, but we keep it as a 19. So if I see that you've got a birth...
That's funny.
Yes, I know. I know. If you've got a birth date, if you're born on the 19th, if your heart's desire is a 19, if your expression is a 19, if your personality is a 19, then I'm going to talk to you about a 19-1. I'm not going to talk to you about the 1. I'm going to talk to you about the karma behind the 19-1, what it means in this lifetime to be a 19-1, etc., etc.
That's so cool. So cool. Michele, free will, and I'm guessing, we all have free will, but what role does that play in numerology? So people like yourself would tell someone, this is your kind of your path, this is your chart, this is what ideally you should be doing. But I'm guessing people can kind of go and just ignore that, can't they? And go and do their own thing. But does it still act as sort of a bit of a guide, do you think, and sort of drive where they go and what they do?
Great question. Great question. And I could never have answered this any sooner than now, because because I've had this beautiful and long-term relationship with the numbers, and I've almost gone through now. The cycles in numerology are from 1 to 9. And as we said before, we focus on the core numbers, but then we have the karmic debt numbers. We also have karmic lessons. We've got past life fears, and the life cycles are from 1 to 9. And I think I mentioned master numbers, 11 and 22. No, I have just now. Okay, beautiful. Yeah. I have just now. So we have the life cycles from 1 to 9, and I've actually almost gone through them twice now. So I'm loving having the experience to be able to talk about numerology now from real life. So in terms of free will, and I always believed that we had it. Through the journey of my experiences with numerology, we still have a choice, okay? But it's really interesting to me that whenever I hear people say, gosh, this year I'm going through a lot of changes at the moment, I always think, oh, I wonder if they're in a personal year 5. Oh, I'm going through a lot of endings at the moment. I think, oh, I wonder if they're in a 9. Going through a lot of relationship difficulties at the moment. I wonder, oh, they're in a 2 or a 6. And so in my experience, I have read with so many people. And every time I get a little feeling about someone, I think, oh, I wonder, and I'll do their chart, and everything about where they're at and how they behave and what they're doing is absolutely in accordance with their profile. I mean, my son is the biggest disbeliever you've ever met in your life. I mean, my son is he's doing a Bachelor of Arts he's doing a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Education. He's a student of philosophy, but he's very scientific. So, and when I gave him his profile, I mean, he did come out of it going, well, some of that's very general, Mum, but very general. But, Mum, some of that is a bit spooky. I don't know how they know that. I don't know how they know that about me. So what I've sort of, I guess, changed to is that, of course, we have free will. Of course, we, at the end of the day, will decide what direction we go in. But it's always surprising to me that I will see the road that you are on and the different choices you could make. Whether you are going towards the energy or away from the energy, you will still be exhibiting the plus and minuses of that number. So that's really interesting to me.
Thankfully, a lot of your clients don't comment on your job the way that your son does. Imagine that. You'd be like,
I tell you, he does say to me, look, Mum, I know that this helps lots of people. And he's very proud and pleased because of that. But he said, but you do know, don't you, that, it's nonsense. It's a pseudoscience.
Only your child could say that and get away with it.
It's so funny because I guess when you were talking, I sometimes wonder, or I can't help but wonder whether or not, let's pretend you kind of talked about relationship difficulties being in a 2 or a 6. Okay, so let's pretend I know I'm in a 2 year. And actually, we probably should explain that a little bit more to our listener at home, but I'll just continue for a moment. If I'm in a 2 year and I am under the impression that I might have difficulties in relationships, and then we also factor in free will, like, is there a possibility that I could just be manifesting these scenarios because I'm going, oh, well, this is a reason why I'm having this argument is because I'm in a 2 year, for example?
Absolutely. Look, I have often, I play devil's advocate all the time. And yeah, absolutely. I often think that. I often think, does this, because I'm also about the power of the mind. And as you just said, the power of suggestion. So sometimes can it be, who knows? But I'm talking about people just sort of talking about where they're at, and then me looking at their profile and going, that's really interesting. But sure, who knows? We know that the power of suggestion, I guess what we love about the power of suggestion is we love it when it works to our advantage. But then at the same time, as you say, definitely. And I have experienced this again in my own life. When I say the things that move me forward, I can absolutely also put a lot of power behind the things that move me back. So, it is interesting. And then it's funny when you say about relationships, because, my partner and I are having, you always have a little bit of conflict anyway. And look, numerology shouldn't be something that it used to be when I was younger. Every person I would date, I would have to do their numbers. I would have to figure it all out.
For sure.
For sure, right? But no, I don't think any one thing should be everything that you live by, because if you did, then there's an imbalance. You're unbalanced. There's no, I just always strive for balance. So I utilized lots of different tools before I got to numerology. Found that one was just so bright and bold and beautiful for me. But that isn't the only tool that I use in my life. And I certainly, when clients come to me, it's not the only tool I use to coach and mentor and counsel either, but it's certainly a very powerful guide. So the number two, if you are going, it doesn't mean that you don't have relationship difficulties in other years. It's just interesting that would be the year if it's going to come up. But the number two is actually in that year, it's all about the relationship, and a partnership. So in that year, I guess you are learning. It's all about learning, discovering new aspects of ourselves, and it's all about learning new tools. So the number two teaches us, the number two firstly is the journey of self-love. And the number two teaches us how to cooperate and how to partner and how to team up with others, which, as we know, if, it's important to build a strong sense of self, but if we don't know how to play nice with others, then we certainly couldn't get along very well or as well in life. So the number two really teaches us how to, the number two is about empathy and compassion and consideration. But if there's too much of that number, we can be overly sensitive and perhaps struggle with anxiety. And if there's not enough of that number in a person's profile, then they could be the opposite of that. And they could really be at some point in time really struggling in life because they're just not adapting or cooperating to where they're at. So in the number 2 year, all of that might come up. If you haven't nurtured other aspects of your life, particularly romance, then in a number 2 year, that might all come up for you to deal with. And I like to say to meet and overcome and grow into the next level of your brilliance.
So Michele, we've been mentioning the number 2 and the different numbers applying to the years. How would we figure out what the number is for this particular year? And I guess if we take 2020 for an example, and then what can that actually reveal, to us, for example, for if we're using 2020 as an example?
Love that you're using 2020 as an example, because guess what? 20 plus 2020, 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 0 equals 4. 4 is all about foundation. At the beginning of the year, I had said in my podcast and various places, all the places that I speak, that this year is about foundation, and any phase of the number 4 is all about revisiting that, and those that aren't that are no longer in our best interest crumble and fall away. And it's very much about new foundation. And look what's happening. Look what's happening globally. So the universal year number is number 4, and look what's happened with the pandemic. So again, just really, really interesting.
Yes.
So I think that we probably need to clarify a few things for our listener at home if they don't have an experience with numerology. So you've talked about, having a 2 year. For some people that might make no sense at all. So can we talk about what do you mean having a 2 year? And can we also talk about, how people are certain numbers, because some people are born in certain years, and you know what I mean? Like I might be born in a 1, for example, but for our listener at home, and even for me, I'd like a clarification. They might not really understand what this is all about. So if we could kind of go back to the foundation again.
Yes, let's go back to the start of the show, where we said that it's based on full name at birth, including your middle name and your birth date details. So and also, as I said, so that's actually all you need to give me for a reading. That's all you need to give me for a reading. I allocate a number to every letter in your name, and out of that, the vowels will give me your heart's desire. Your heart's desire is what drives and motivates you. Out of the consonants in your name, I'm going to get the personality. And the personality is how others see you. And then I'm going to add that together and I get your expression number. And your expression number is going to tell me what are your gifts, what are your talents, okay? Where are you best suited in terms of career? And Lauren, those three numbers can be completely different. And if you think about it, we can often be different in relationships versus our work life. We can often be different socially as we are behind closed doors. So that's just a little snippet of the personality. I also do what I call the kit. So I also, and this is actually in our spiritual journal, ladies, which has just landed, a new
Nice
publication. Yes, I'm kidding. I'm talking about the spiritual journal there, which is a beautiful book of 12 contributors. And in that, my numerology month, I'm teaching you how to work out what's in your kit. And KIT stands for key indicator traits. So I count all the numbers. So if I had to do a reading for Lauren, well, you know, L is 3, A is 1, U is 3, R is 9, E is 5, and N is 5. So what I'm going to do with your kit is I'm going to add all the ones in Lauren's name, and I'll put it in this kit. I'll add all the 2s, all the 3s, and then what that gives me insight into, number 1 is going to give me insight into how Lauren goes with confidence and leadership. Number 2 will give me some insight into how Lauren goes with sensitivity and cooperation. Number 3 will give me insight into creativity, public speaking, and Lauren, L is 3, so her cornerstone is already 3. So I'm already seeing, and she's already got a U in that her first name, so I'm already seeing creativity in this individual. I'm already seeing that this individual would be okay in the spotlight, if not actually enjoy the spotlight, right? Number 4 is all about responsibility, and number 4 will show me your work ethic and health-wise. Number 5 is all about how you manage change. If you've got too many 5s, then you might be really scattered and struggle to complete things in life. You might be more of a rebel. If you don't have enough 5s, which can explain, this is what I love about numerology. It didn't just help me to understand me. It helped me to understand my brother, my son, my father, my mother. It helped me to understand others. And when you can understand that everyone's built differently, then you start to develop compassion and patience and tolerance. So number 5, if an individual struggles with 5, if they have a challenge 5 or not enough 5s in their name, they will struggle to let go. They will prefer things to stay the same. So if we think about people that stay in situations that are long past their use-by date, you can probably, I always find that they don't have enough 5s or they have a challenge with 5. Number 6 is family and how you go with perfectionism. Number 7 is spiritual. Number 8 is the career and how we manage our power in the world. And number 9 is the humanitarian, the generosity and the gratitude. So, you know, it breaks down into, there are many different parts of life, and there are many different parts of us. And so your profile will give us insight into all of that. So when we come to your cycles, I get that out of your birth date. So I will, just as we did there with the universal year, 2020 is a universal year 4. So then what I will do is I will add your day plus your month to the universal year 4, and that'll tell me what cycle you are in 2020. But there's a disclaimer, because it does depend on whether you are born at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, or the end of the year. Simply determines how quickly that energy comes into your life. So for me, I'm born in February. So for me, the universal, my birth date is the 4th of the 2nd. So 4 plus 2 is 6, and I add that to the universal year of number 4. Then I come out at 10, and 1 plus 0 is 1. So 2020 for me is a 1 year. And because I'm born in February, I have to tell you, as soon as the clock strikes 12, for me, I'm in that energy. I'm already experiencing that energy. But if you're born in the middle of the year or the end of the year, that 1 energy will come in incrementally. So you may not feel the 1 until you get to sort of, you know, the second quarter of the year. So I always sort of have to explain that as well.
I think Michelle and I are both born in March, right, Michelle?
I'm April.
Oh, you're April.
Yeah,
oh,
but
yeah,
1 month difference.
And I'm March.
Still early.
Right. So Michelle, what was your date of birth?
Well, I just wanted to ask you something, Michelle, because you and I have the same name.
Yes.
So I just wondered, like, does that mean that like every Michelle that I meet, I should essentially like get along with or be kind of similar to? But also what I'm interested in is with people who change their names. So obviously our
Yes.
parent gives us a name, and then we have middle names and other names and things like that. But I guess we're just working mostly with the first name. But some people change their name. They're like, I don't like the name that my dad gave me or my mum gave me. And you have Cat Stevens who changed his name to something entirely different. So what happens with that? Like, do they
Mm.
then get like a new chart? Like it changes who they are? Like,
Yes, yes.
yeah.
Well, great question, and absolutely. So, your full name at birth, and we always work it out on your full name at birth,
Okay.
only to get that sense of who you are inherently. Okay, who you are at the core of it all. But you know, we know that we are not the same Michelle that we were born as, because we grew up. We went through childhood and young adulthood, and you know, etc. So forth. And along the way, I read many books, and we've grown. We've done courses, so we have changed. So we do use your full name at birth just to get who you are inherently. But then when you have name changes, just as you change anyway through the natural experience of life, if you get a name change, you are going to change energetically, interestingly enough, in that direction. But I've got a great story to tell you, because a couple of my students, I've had a couple of students that were adopted. And so what we did, both of them were fortunate enough to know the name they were born with, and their birth mothers. So what we did was we worked out their numerology based on if they had stayed with the birth mother and had that name, or the name that they were given by the adopting mother. And you wouldn't believe it, aside from one or two numbers, my first student, both mothers, their profile was exactly the same. Exactly the same. And her profile, whether she'd had that name or this name, was absolutely similar, except
Wow.
except the one number. I know with the second, it's hard to remember now, it was a long time ago, but with my second adopted client, I think she had in the adopted name, she had lots of fives, and I knew her to be quite free-spirited, whereas in the name that she would have had, she was under in that five energy. So it was interesting that what I knew about her now, and what really was her calling card now, which was really free spirit, was the numbers that she added to her name through the adoption process. So
Amazing.
almost like, if you're like me and you believe that, I don't believe that the parents chose our name. I believe that we chose it through them. So if you believe in the soul and the spiritual and the reincarnation, then your birth name is giving me insight into the soul that you were born to be. But along the way, when you change your name, I did a profile for I remember another story where she, before getting married and after being married, what changed in her profile was the one energy. One is confidence. You've got a nice balance of one, then you're going to believe in yourself. You're going to be self-assured rather than have the self-doubt. And she brought in more one energy when she took on the married name. And when I said to her, did you find that you became a bit more confident when you got married? And she said, yeah, I did. I did become more confident. Now, did she become confident because she got married and had that extra support, or was it her numerology? Again, I don't know. I just love to study it, and I'm fascinated by
So
it.
cool.
And yeah,
It's a
very
chicken or
cool.
the egg question. The chicken or the egg? What
Yeah,
comes
yeah.
first?
And when you said about Michelle, you and I are both Michelle, but I've only got the one L, right? You've got
Yes,
the two
correct.
L's.
Correct.
I'm trying to think, have I ever met? No, I have met a Michelle I didn't get along with, so I'm not
Hopefully not
sure.
me.
No, not you at all. And because you have to think, though, although we both have Michelle as our name, we have a different second name and
Yep.
last name. So therefore, it would change the energy. But certainly what I recognize in you and what I've recognized in every other Michelle, we've got the M. That's our cornerstone. And M is 4. So it doesn't matter how unstructured we may be elsewhere. Number 4 likes structure. Number 4 likes a plan. Number 4 has a very practical grounded. So even though I'm very much about spiritual development, I believe in reincarnation, I'm much more practical than woo-woo. My woo is very practical.
I like that a
I
lot.
love
That's
it.
good.
Love
So
that.
you kind of mentioned quite a few things there, Michelle, just in relation to whether or not we choose our name through our parents, whether or not, we kind of take on, the names as we change, maybe in life, like if we're changing our name or getting married and things of that nature. I guess I was just wondering whether or not you think it's important for parents who are naming children to sort of check the numerology behind that, and also whether or not you recommend the same thing for business names. Because I'll go back to the story I was talking about earlier when I met this woman who was telling me about this Chaldean thing, and she was basically telling me that the business name that I had in mind wasn't a good name and I needed to change it. And I really didn't want to, because I felt like this is the name that I really wanted, and it encompassed a lot more than maybe this number behind it. And then I thought, that I believe that I can change the trajectory of a business based on my intention and my integrity and my hard work. So yeah, I guess I'm just kind of wondering your thoughts on that too.
Absolutely. Great question. And I love that. I love that. I love how you said, I can, it's up to me. I can, what I put into my business is what I'll get out of it. So again, I guess then I would go to the power of the mind stuff, and, and our ability to manifest. And if that's what you believe, then that's what you believe, and that's how it is. And I would say, amen. So this is interesting with, as I said, in my earlier days when I was dating, I would absolutely do that. I'd work out their numerology, and I tell you what, it doesn't make a jot of difference whether it's going to work out or not, right? So I stopped doing that. And then the more I studied it, I did have, it's lovely if you want to, of course, I would encourage you to get a reading if you want to learn and discover more about yourself. At the same time, when it comes to choosing names for your children, this is what I say about it usually. Although if you want to get a reading for your child, I won't be knocking you back. But I do say this, that, we can't control everything in the world. We can't control everything in the world. So, you can't control how your child, I did have students that became pregnant and would try and, pick the perfect name. And even when people say, I was actually on Triple M in Queensland a couple of years back, and they said they want to be on there to talk about numbers because there was a big, Tats Lotto draw, and they wanted to know which numbers were good and bad, and honestly, no number is good or bad. I do know there are lots of tales and beliefs around numbers. The Chinese absolutely believe that the number 8 is very, very auspicious, but to me, no number is good or bad. Every number has a positive and every number has a negative. So you can manipulate the name. Let's say you can manipulate your child's name to bring out numbers such as, people do feel like the master numbers. They think master numbers 11 and 22 are they're just powerful, beautiful numbers. If I had that number, I would just be all things fantastic, which again isn't true, because those master numbers absolutely have some negatives and some challenges that accompany it. But even if you could manipulate the name, the birth date is still up to life. Do you know what I mean? So so really your numerology to me is giving you insight into you at that soul level. So if you at the soul level has chosen, if you have chosen to come in here and work through issues of leadership, if you've chosen to come in here and work through, lack of integrity, or work through impatience, or work through, issues with commitment, then that's then that's what I see in your profile. That's what shows up in your profile. So I mean, of course, yeah, we do all want the best for our children, but I'm not one to promote, getting a reading just to hear that everything's going to be okay, because, the good news, the good news about life is that we all go through the same trials and tribulations, but your profile, that's what I love about it, is giving you insight into what that can be, and then we can help you to meet and overcome that.
So talking about overcoming, if we do have a name, personal name, business name, or live at a home with a challenging number, is there something we can do about that apart from change our name, or move house. Is
Move
one
house,
thing we can
yes.
do to manage that.
And actually, when it comes to business names, I did, let's answer that part of the question, because with business names, I would probably be more, business names, it is great to get a business name reading. It really can give you some insight into, I just did one for a client this week, and what I suggested to her, I didn't say to change the name, but I did say that, I would be using the beautiful words that were generated out of that, the numbers in her business name, use that in your marketing. But no, look, and that's the thing. I've never ever done that. I didn't, although having said that about children's names, I did, with my son, I did add my son at the time that he was born, I was a single parent. I wasn't with his father. And then, but this was also aligned with the experience in life, because he didn't see his dad for the longest time. And when he started to see his dad again, I then, after a certain period of time, wanted him to, feel and be part of that family. So I did attach his father's surname. He's got the Scott-Brown. And in doing that, it was gratifying in doing that to learn that it did actually soothe a particular part of his profile that may have been a challenge. Okay. So, in that kind of instance, but that was aligned with, as I said, with life. It wasn't just doing it to get out of, I've never shopped for houses based on house numbers. As you just said, Michelle, I think you can't keep moving things around in life to suit us, because it'll just catch up with you somewhere else. But it's nice to learn about it, though. It's nice to learn about the number that you're in and what it means, because every number has a positive. So you can be locked into a number 4, as I was in a pinnacle 4, and it was very, very difficult, and I hated so much about it. But when I came out of that pinnacle 4, the rest of everything that followed after that couldn't have happened if I hadn't buckled down. Any phase of 4, you have to buckle down. It's not about expansion, it's about foundation, it's about learning commitment, it's about becoming more grounded and practical. And I couldn't have grown what I've grown since then if I hadn't gone through that. So I think that's important to realize about our lives, that everything we go through that's challenging is preparing you for something.
I love how you talked about that, like that it's going to catch up with you anyway. Because I remember on one of our episodes, Michelle was looking at a house and she didn't like the number of one, but she liked the number of the other one.
Yeah.
And, and it's funny when you think about that. Yeah, we are here to learn these lessons, and maybe we're being drawn to a certain number that might be challenging to work through that stuff, so we can then learn those lessons, build that foundation, and move on to the next. So I guess my next question is really just around favorite numbers, because I know that most people have a favorite number. For me, my favorite number is a master number. It's number 22. And I will say that I'm born on the 22nd. So that's definitely probably the reason why I was drawn to that number. And I know you talked about master numbers having, positive and also challenges with them. But, are we often drawn to a certain number for a reason? Or do we kind of get fixated sometimes on just going, my favorite number is 22 because the other day, my partner and I, we went out for lunch and we were given table number 22, and he looked at me and I went, aha. And he knew, like, he just is, he knows now that when I get those little signs that I'm paying attention. But it's funny that he did as well. So yeah, just your thoughts on that?
Yes, I love that. And look, we all believe in, signs and symbolism. So, I'm always looking out for but not even looking out for it, as you say. It just, you just sort of, you attract it. I'm not sure if we attract it because it's our favorite number, or, as we said before, the chicken or the egg. So we do all have favorite numbers. And I would be inclined to say what you just said, Lauren, that, we are attracted in the direction either of what is a challenge, or sometimes we're attracted in the direction of what we are great at. So for you, having a birthday 22, yes, it's a master number. 22 is the characteristics of the 2, but also 2 + 2 = 4. So 22 is the master number. 22 will deal with sensitivity. 22, a high level of sensitivity, and the more that she can overcome that, and the more that she can grow. And also it's important to remember with all of the numbers in numerology that all of them are about how we can serve. So the master numbers, with great power comes great responsibility. The master numbers have great power to manifest whatever it is that they are, drawn to, that they have the desire to. But it's important to remember now, I can't remember exactly where this is. I think it was the expression number that both Bill Clinton had a master number 11, but so did Adolf Hitler. So when we get back again to free will, think about that. Both of them had the power to influence. Number 11 is the inspirational speaker, and both of them had the power to influence and inspire. But you see, and both of them believed very strongly in why they were doing that. But we all know that Adolf was not the kind of we didn't really want to, we didn't really like the way in which he led. But both. So with free will, numerology, I have found that you've got all the tools there to do what you can do for the greatest good. But sometimes, if that person is a little bit, not quite right, then their greatest good may not be the greatest good that we all agree on. So the 22 has the power to build whatever she sets her mind to, particularly if it's in the direction of making mankind or the world that she lives in a better place to be.
So Michele, that's such a good example. I love that. Last couple of questions. I just wanted to know how we can sort of use the numbers in our business, and I guess how does it apply to that? Is it based on the name of the business? Is that sort of how it really? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
And how funny that you've asked me that question a few times, and I seem to be answering. Answering. That's interesting. But anyway, getting back to the business name, absolutely. Look, if you are deciding on business names, then why not get a numerology reading? Because like your name, there will be different energies attached to each of the numbers. We've got, in numerology, we've got feminine numbers and masculine numbers. We've got intuitive numbers and practical numbers. So it's well worth while getting, if you're contemplating a couple of names, getting a reading around that, or if you're contemplating changing your name. But with Lauren, she loved her name. She didn't want to change it. So keep the name that you've got if it's absolutely working for you. Look, none of us want to make changes when things are going great. I mean, why would we fix things that aren't broken? So you're only going to come for a business name reading if you're kind of not feeling, you want to change, and you're wondering if this will change the energy in your business. And if that's the case, then come and get a reading, because it'll be on your business name. So I guess so let's take I'm the founder of our wellness community, so, and not that I did numerology around this, to be honest, but that's how I would work out your business. I would do a business name reading. I would have our wellness community. I would assign a number to every letter in our wellness community, and out of that I would tell a story. It's important to note that I studied numerology. This is the thing about numerology. Honestly, you can just pick up the book, and Hans Dekos is a renowned numerologist. He's one of my mentors. He's unbelievable. You go to his website, you can learn numerology online. So out of the book, you can get all of this information. But then at the same time, if you come for a reading with me and a mentoring or coaching session with me, well, I've got my own stories I tell, my own experiences I draw upon, and my own intuitiveness that would play a part in that. So I would tell a story out of your business name, and there would be the positives and the negatives, and then we would talk about, if you wanted to keep that name, we would talk about ways in which you could lighten it or darken it, or do something different with it. I'd certainly have recommendations.
Yeah, and taking it a bit further, I guess what I was asking is, apart from the name, like, do we, because a lot of us are working from home now, I'm one of them, so then would we take into account the house number and all the other things that we've sort of talked about?
Not for your business name, no.
Not for business.
Not for your business name. If you were just contemplating, your business name, not for your business name. Okay. If you're working from home, then I hadn't thought of that. But if you are working from home, then the space is important.
Yes,
and we could also take that into account. Certainly,
and then we'd use feng shui and other things, I guess. As well.
Exactly. There's so many beautiful modalities out there. And look, when I found love with my partner, I tell you, I did everything. I don't think you should stop at any one thing. you should do everything, and you should keep doing everything until you get to wherever it is you need to go. So I did feng shui, to attract love. I wrote out a letter, with everything I was looking for in that person. I looked out the signs and symbolism as well as the numerology.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Fabulous. And for our listener at home as well, we do have an episode on feng shui. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes. So Michele, just a couple more questions and then we'll wrap things up. First of all, you're a fabulous speaker. I've learned a lot. You've have a really kind of captivating way of explaining this stuff. So thank you so much. I am curious about, whether or not you pay attention to numbers in relation to pricing. So, as you know, we're in business, so we talk about pricing. So I have heard that, with e-commerce and online businesses, 7s and 3s might help with that. Do you kind of pay attention to, the way that the numbers look as a whole when you're pricing your services, or do you add them up? As well?
Yes, I do. And even in the business world, they actually do a lot of research around numbers and what numbers to apply in terms of pricing, because it used to be, when we were growing up, it used to be $1.99 or $5.99, whereas I've noticed now it's moved to $97. It's $190, it's $97 or $197. And yes, I do. I never used to, but I must say again, whether it's just, my own growth, but the last couple of years, when I have actually started pricing things at 22 and 44 and 88, I have had a lot more success. So I do pay attention to that. I don't, when it comes to pricing in my business, I may not necessarily add them all up, but I do like to stick to the master numbers. In Pythagorean numerology, only 11 and 22 apply as master numbers. But over the years, I love Dan Millman, and Dan Millman has a fantastic book, To Discovering Life Purpose, and he only focuses on the birth date, and he includes master numbers 33, 66, 33, 44, 55, and 66. So, yeah, I do.
That's great. So good.
Yeah, so I know you did talk off the top a little bit about how numerology can also help in our business relationships. And so I guess I'm kind of wondering whether or not, because if I'm working with somebody, I'm a solopreneur at the moment, but if I'm working with somebody, let's say, and I don't know their middle names or their birth dates,
yes,
can I glean any information from them just based on their first name and their last name?
Or do we just stalk them on Facebook? Do we just look up their Facebook profile?
We just stalk them. And, as I said, numerology, we've got the Myers-Briggs personality indicator in the corporate world. And I think in the corporate world, there's a couple of others they use as well. So certainly, if I was employing somebody, if I, I don't really do this with all of our collaborators in the wellness community, but at the same time, we do get a good sense, don't we? We do get a good sense of people and how they are. But if you wanted to, know a little bit more, you could certainly get plenty of information out of the first and last name. You can get a lot of information just out of that first letter. The first letter of your name is the cornerstone, the last letter of your name is the capstone. So we can get insight into how you start and finish things. And that might be a good thing to know if you were contemplating, going into a project or a joint venture with someone. Maybe you want to know how they start things and finish things, because if you're someone that needs to, we can often complement each other, but also at the same time, you don't really want two people with the same strengths in a partnership. If both people, wanted to have that plan and that organization and structure, then it might end up quite stiff and too controlled. So, it's always good to have that complement, but then at the same time, you don't want to go, who would want to be in partnership with someone, for example, where they did all the work? If you went into partnership with someone and you knew how to finish things off and they didn't know how to finish things off, or if they got, distracted in halfway through. So you can get some information out of that first name, and certainly the first and second.
Cool.
It would only be half the picture, but
Yeah, but it's still, I guess, if you're having a challenge with someone or you're, wanting, that might help. So the cornerstone is you just use the first name, do you?
First
Not
letter. The first letter
letter.
is, first letter is your cornerstone.
And then your capstone is the last letter of your first name.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
interesting. Cool.
It is interesting. I don't normally read that part of the profile very often because there's so many aspects, but you could certainly get information out of that.
Hi, thanks so much for listening to the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave us a review where you listen to your podcast and share it with your friends. Thank you. New episodes every Thursday.